Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Stan once again, and this is a radio audio edition of Inconvenient Ideas. And of course, we began with one of my favorite sounders of all time, and that is the one from the BBC. I don't think they use it anymore, but when I was there, they did. And I love it, and I'm going to continue to use it, even if they don't. Yes, the BBC World Service sounder. Hey, my radio station is not nearly that big or significant. It is a podcast radio station, and that means it goes still, just as the BBC did, all around the world. But do you know how much it costs them to be able to reach people around the world? All of the towers and transmitters, the millions, maybe even billions of dollars in expense to actually send the BBC message around the world. And now I can reach anybody around the world on my little podcast station if they have a smartphone. And a lot of people do. If they have a laptop computer, if they have any kind of computer, if they have an iPad, and if they have any connection at all to an internet connection, they can listen to the program from What It Takes Radio, which is called Inconvenient Ideas. This is a very special day, particularly in American history, because we honor on this day one of America's heroes, and that is Dr. Martin Luther King. This is a celebration of his birthday, which has become a national holiday. And I think that's a very, very good idea, and I support that. A lot of people didn't. They didn't think that should happen, but I totally supported it. And there's a little bit of a very interesting story that I can tell you where I have a little bit of a connection, only in a way, but it's kind of fun. All right, stay tuned. The program begins, right now. Yes, I meant to give the title to you. Yes, that was the title. That was probably a little, catcher title, teaser title. But it is true. Dr. Martin Luther King is not his correct title. Many people today will talk about Dr. Martin Luther King. And of course, they may use the term Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. because that was his full name, in the sense that he was named after his father, who was Dr. Martin Luther, who was a significant minister. And so he was, in the parlance of the world, he was a PK. He was a preacher's kid. And he went on, and what really struck me every time is to realize that that assassination, and I remember when it happened. That's how old I am. I remember when it happened and how shocking it was when he was shot and killed by some creature. I don't know if I'd call him a critter. Certainly not a human being in the terms that it should be. And he used a high-powered deer rifle and shot Dr. Martin Luther King in the neck, in the head, and he died. One of the things that struck me, I remember this so vividly, is that when they were capturing all of this, they held up the rifle that was used, and I don't even use his name, the guy who shot him. And I was aghast, and I called my wife and said, "That is the same kind of rifle that your father uses for deer hunting." And indeed it was. It was what we called a pump-action Remington 30-06 rifle. a very high-powered rifle. Now, actually, her father used it as a deer hunter. And he wasn't just a sportsman. Where he lived and what he lived, hunting for deer in the fall was part of the way that you got enough food to eat for the winter. So in Minnesota and Wisconsin, when deer season happened in the usually late October, November, many did that, not just for sport, but it was a way of actually having enough meat and food to have throughout the rather rugged winters. And by the way, we're going through a rather rugged winter day here in the United States. But here is what I wanted to point out. The correct title for Dr. Martin Luther King is the Reverend Dr. Yes, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was his full, correct, and clerical title. That's what he was. Oftentimes we just say Reverend, just like we say Doctor, but Reverend or the Reverend meant that he had been chosen, specifically chosen, to be a man who had and should have the responsibility of speaking on things of God and the Spirit, things that were called ecclesiastical. Dr. King was not merely a civil rights leader. He was a political activist. He was a moral philosopher. But he was first and always a Christian minister. Using the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. honors his ordination, signals his theological grounding, and acknowledges that his leadership flowed from pulpit to people to the public square. And that's important to remember. A helpful rule. His sermons and his marches and his moral clarity were not parallel tracks. They were one calling. His faith in God, was foundational to his public work. So that's the line you should use. Like we said, it's very fine to call him Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but his full title tells a deeper story. I don't know if you knew that, but it's important. He really was. And for some people, that's rather inconvenient because they don't know if they want to get involved with this spiritual or religious stuff. And many of them, of even liberal and progressive tendencies, may have a problem with that. But he did not. That was very keen and clear to him. He spoke in churches. He spoke in terms of what many would say one of the best of the black preachers. And if you have any sense of what that would mean, particularly in the American context, in the American Southern context, that is quite an honor. He was quite the man who didn't just speak, he would preach. And he would preach at you, with you, and to you, and also speak with you. I remember that in effect we have to understand that he was very, very much a preacher, as well as a teacher, as well as a moral philosopher, as a disruptor, and he was, and an activist, and obviously even in some sense a political activist. That's part of the story. So I just thought I would bring that up as a fun and a reminder element. It's not inconvenient to me, but it's interesting to note. And for some people, it might be just slightly inconvenient. But he would claim it, he would name it, and he would proclaim it. Just a brief note. One of the stories that I have discovered, because part of what I have discovered is I always wondered about my name. Okay, you call me Stan. I prefer Stosh many times because I didn't like Stanley. But when I was in a large Polish community growing up, it turned out that many of the Polish people, when they met me, would call me Stosh. And I couldn't say why. And they said, well, Stanley's a very common name in Poland and in Polish communities because Saint Stanislaus is our patron saint. I said, yeah. And so there's a lot of Stanleys, but we have a nickname for a Stanley, and that was Stosh. And I liked that. I like to be called Stosh. In fact, I now have my AI robot, and guess what I named him? Stosh. All right. Here we go. We'll make this work. I may have been named after one of the great evangelists, what are called sometimes the Billy Graham of the 19th century. His name was Stanley Jones. Stanley Jones. And he was an evangelist, a missionary to India, and to all parts of the world. And in his work, he became very, very good friends of the hero of India, and that was Mahatma Gandhi. Many of you have heard of him, you know of him, one of the more historical figures. My Dr. Jones, he was Dr. Jones, Stanley Jones, E. Stanley Jones. His full name was Eli Stanley Jones, and he didn't want to be Eli, so he just was Stanley. And he didn't like the term reverend, even though he was one. He preferred brother. He thought that would be a little more egalitarian, and he was Brother Stanley Jones. And he wrote a book about Gandhi. And that was kind of a hard thing. Some people took that in some difficult ways. It was inconvenient that a Christian missionary would write about a man, Gandhi, who was not a Christian. And he did so in a very, very positive way. It was inconvenient for some of the people, but he did that, and he did it in spite of the objection. Later on, it was discovered that Dr. Martin Luther King, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, actually claimed that what led him to his theory and almost his theology of how to make the civil rights movement work, the one of no matter what, nonviolence. And that became, as many people know, his theme. No matter what you do, no matter how you protest, don't fight back. Be nonviolent. If you're sitting at the counter table in what they called the sit-ins, and some white thugs come up and beat you up, don't fight back. Don't give in to violence. And supposedly he claimed that it was actually the fact that he had read the book by Stanley Jones on Gandhi that was his inspiration for the movement that he led, and of course died for. And of course we honor him and honor his legacy. It's hard to believe. It's been a long time. But he accomplished all that in under 40 years. What a remarkable story. Well, there we are. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving me 15 minutes today for an inconvenient idea as we think about, and I give God thanks for the person of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Blessings be on his name, and blessings on his family, and blessings on those who follow his way. Till next time, I'm Stan Hustad for Inconvenient Ideas. Reach out to me. I'd be glad to help you in any way I can. And I probably can. As a speaker, as a broadcaster, as a business performance coach. That's what I do, and I think I do it pretty well. Reach out to me at stan@witradio.net. I'm primarily a broadcaster. stan@witradio.net. All the best and blessings to you. Until next time, bye for now.